Good evening and a very warm welcome to NTV's My Teacher. I'm Sunana Iqbal, and today, for a change, I shall be doing the honors. Our prayers are with those in Nepal, and may Almighty be with them. Now today, what is the topic of discussion? How can a person study and master a topic in 1/3 the time? We all agree that studying is very, very important. Securing marks, securing A1s and A+s are very, very important. Now, what goes into this? Is it all about willpower and effort on the part of the child? Or is there something more to it called skill power? Just like playing football and cricket, just like playing any musical instrument like a guitar or a violin, learning is also a skill that you're born with. Some people are born with it while others are not. Now, in case of playing a sport or playing a musical instrument, you have a choice. If we are not born with that skill, we needn't play it at all. But in case of learning, we don't have a choice. We have to learn, whether we like it or not, whether we are born with that skill or not. A person who is born with that skill will find learning very easy and convenient. But what happens with those who are not born with that skill to learn? He has to develop or acquire that skill, and that is where accelerated learning techniques, or ALT in short, comes into play. What is ALT? ALT is a concept which helps every person to learn and study better and more effectively with the help of certain tools and techniques. During the course of my doctoral research, I've come across several studies which have proved the effectiveness of ALT in improving the academic scores of students, and that is around the world across different curricula. So today we will be discussing the basic concept of ALT and sharing a few tools and techniques with you which you can easily apply in your daily life. We have a subject matter expert in the studio with us. He has an international certification in accelerated learning techniques. So let me welcome Dr. Sangeet Ibrahim to the show. Welcome, Doctor. Good evening.
Thank you, and thank you for hijacking my show for once.
I've taken over your show. Welcome once again. Doctor, what are your thoughts on ALT, or accelerated learning techniques?
Sunana, before jumping headlong into accelerated learning techniques, I want to share a few thoughts on the subject. Now, every year I get to address a lot of students, senior students in schools. And I start off by asking them this question: where do you people want to work? Give me the names of some organizations that you want to work in. So typically I hear names like Google and Microsoft and NASA and the United Nations, and I feel pretty happy because it's so nice to know that these people have pitched their targets quite high and that they're ambitious. But then I ask them another question. I ask them, how many of you believe that scoring well in academics, getting your A+s and A1s and doing well in all the examinations is important to have a good career in life? And you will be really surprised to know the response from these students. Usually I get shocked because just one or two hands go up, and when they see that the others are not agreeing, even those come down. Frankly speaking, now this is a matter of concern to our parents and to our teachers. Many of our youngsters believe that doing well in math and English and chemistry and physics has nothing to do with career success later on. Now this is alarming. Now what I tell them is that if they want to work in these kind of organizations that they mentioned, then they should really focus on their studies, because these kind of organizations, be it Google or NASA, these organizations, they recruit from the top 1 or 2 or 3 institutions in every country, and to get into these institutions, it is not easy, because thousands and thousands of students apply to get into these institutions, but less than 2 to 3% actually manage to get in. So if you want to really work in these places, it is nice to set your standards high, but then you must realize that you should not be just, or you must be not just a topper in class, but you must be a topper in your whole school. There is no way out. Now when I say this, unfortunately sometimes even parents come back and say, Sangeet, you're very old fashioned, this is not true. Don't you know that Bill Gates dropped out from college? Haven't you seen the movie Three Idiots? And you know, those three idiots, even though they didn't do well in college, they went on to become successful in life. Now that's when I tell them, hey, hold on, you guys are getting it wrong. Bill Gates dropped out from college, and that college was Harvard. Not because he couldn't learn, but because he was too fast for that institution and he wanted to start something on his own. And that college that they refer to in the movie Three Idiots, it's supposed to be, it's positioned as India's #1 college, #1 engineering college. And by the way, that's shot in IIM Bangalore as well. So by the time you reach there, you would definitely have the knowledge and the skills to make it big in life. Okay, and at that point, even if you drop out, it's okay. So guys, what you have to realize is that your school and your college basically is preparing you to succeed in life. Even if you forget what sine theta by cos theta is, even if you forget Hindi grammar, you are given a challenge which is to pass in your examination, and to do that you have to learn, okay, and you've got a limited period to do that. So if you don't understand, you go to your teachers, you go to your friends, you go to Google, and you beat those challenges to win. This is exactly what you do in life later on when you get a job or when you do your own business. Challenges, limited time, and you have to find ways to beat it. But when you're in college or school, you have the support of your teacher and your friends. So there's no way out, definitely. Scoring an A+, as Sunaina said, is really, really important. But having said that, yes, you have the question of willpower and skill power. Parents might realize that, you know, sometimes your older kids might find it really easy to learn and they do well, but your younger kids might be struggling. So it's just not a question of asking them to learn. It's just not a question of pushing them. It's not a question of, you know, scaring them to learn. Sometimes they are not equipped with the skills to do it. It's just like being able to sing or being able to dance or being able to play a sport. So that is where accelerated learning comes in, and I agree with Sunaina, it's extremely important to give those skills to people. So these are my initial thoughts on the subject, Doctor.
Okay. Doctor, there's a huge hype about the learning styles, the three different learning styles, the visual learner, the kinesthetic learner, and the auditory learner. Now, who is a visual learner? A visual learner is a person who has to see things to get it registered. He has to see. An auditory learner, on the other hand, has to hear or listen to get things registered. Now, these kids would be good at music, for example. And who is a kinesthetic learner? Kinesthetic learners need movement, touch, and feel while learning. So that is why you see certain students or children fiddling with their pens, drumming on the desk while learning, shaking their legs vigorously while learning. Yeah, all these are kinesthetic learners because they need movement while learning. We have often heard complaints from parents like, my son has been doing really good in biology last year, but this year his grades have dropped considerably. Now, what could be the reason? And they are told that one reason could be because of the mismatch between the learning style of the student and the teaching style of the teacher. Yeah, the learning style of the student, the child could be a visual learner, and the teacher could be, for example, an auditory learner, and that will predominantly show in her teaching style as well. So there is an obvious mismatch, and that could be one of the reasons why the child is not able to absorb what is being taught by that teacher in class. Now, how far is this true? Or what is your take on this?
Sunaina, you've actually caught the topic bang on, because any discussion on accelerated learning cannot continue without mentioning learning styles, because different people have got different learning styles. But this topic has become a little controversial. It used to be accepted quite a lot initially, but now a lot of research proves that we should approach it in a cautious manner.
Way.
So before I speak about learning styles and what parents must consider when they are trying to push their kids to learn and how it's related to accelerated learning techniques, we've got a small video. We'll that we would like to share with you. So I would like to request the studio to play this video. That will give you a very good orientation on what learning styles is, and we will take the conversation forward from there. So I'd like to request them to play the short video, please. Welcome back. I hope you found the video interesting. Now, I've seen a lot of consultants who promise memory techniques and study techniques, approach accelerated learning and learning styles the wrong way. What they do is they get your child and they administer a questionnaire. They give a questionnaire and they make the child answer a few questions, and then voila, he says, okay, your child is a visual learner. So based on that, your child should learn based on 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the techniques that will help him learn better. Or you're an auditory learner, or you're a kinesthetic learner. But what research says is that this is a wrong approach, okay? Because you might be a visual learner, your preference might be towards visual learning, but sometimes even if you learn using the kinesthetic style, you probably might end up learning better and faster than using the visual style. So it's not a hard and fast rule. The point is that you should vary your learning styles. So I come back to what Dr. Sunaina said. Sometimes students find it extremely hard to adjust in a particular class under a particular teacher. I might find it extremely easy to learn under another teacher. This is exactly because of the difference in learning styles. Because if I am a visual learner, if my preference is to go along the visual way, then unfortunately when I teach, I'll tend to use visual techniques more. And I might not vary, I might not jump into an auditory style or a kinesthetic style. And because of that, the other learners might find it extremely difficult. So the point is that you should keep varying the different styles, okay, so that you use a little bit of visual learning style, then you use a little bit of auditory and kinesthetic, and when it becomes like a buffet, then it becomes easier for your brain to register information in. And very similar case is that of left and right brains. There are consultants who say you're a left brainer, you should look at text in black and white. You're a right brainer, you should look at images. But that's also wrong. That's what research proves. We use both our hemispheres for learning, the left brain and the right brain. So what you have to do is you have to use a mashup of techniques, which we will explain in due course of time. So the whole point is teachers should be aware. You should know what your predominant style is, and you should always check, am I using only my predominant style and putting my kids to disadvantage? How can I bring in the other styles? And for parents and students, they should make sure that when you're given a topic to learn, you should try using your different styles so that the brain understands it faster and you register it for a longer period of time. So doctor, that's my thoughts about learning styles when it comes to accelerated learning.
Great. Sangeet, let's take the viewers through the various techniques involved. First of all, the visual learning techniques. These, as I said, a visual learner is a person who has to see things to get it registered. So we should give them maximum visual aids like pictures, diagrams, images, PowerPoint presentations. When there's a topic to be learned, when there's a lesson to be learned, let him sit down and convert it into a pictorial representation, or in case the child is really good at Microsoft Office in preparing PowerPoint presentations, let him prepare a PPT involving all the relevant topics in that lesson, including all the relevant details, so that next time when he has to learn, he just has to take a look at this PPT. Yeah. Secondly, maximum use of colors. Yeah, while underlining, while marking things, they should use maximum number of colors, because this will activate their brain. They'll be able to pay more attention to what they are learning if there are more colors, if they see more colors on the page. And then these people would be really good at visualization, that is seeing things in their mind's eye. So for example, if they're learning World War II, let them sit down. Initially, yes, it will definitely take time. It will almost look like daydreaming, but let them take their time and visualize the entire scene in their mind's eye, so that it runs like a movie in their mind next time when they have to review that chapter. So that's about the learning techniques for a visual learner. What do you think? What are the techniques for an auditory learner?
Sunana, when you explain different learning styles, what comes to my mind is that you go back to kindergarten. Okay, now it is in kindergarten that you learn the most, where you go in with a blank slate, and then that's when you imbibe most of the information early on, which helps you to do well in life. And we learn best when we are in kindergarten. So just think about the environment in a typical KG1 or KG2 class. Again, lot of color. Okay, you're given the freedom to paint, the freedom to draw, freedom to play with clay. So what happens exactly? Yeah, and then on the auditory front, sing and listen to music. Everything is a rhyme, and children can walk around, sing, jump around tables, sit, lie down, and the whole environment is very casual. I think we should also talk about your emotional state. Okay, because when your emotional state is that of happiness, and when you're relaxed, your left and the brains can work together in tandem, and you learn much better. That's why sometimes when your child doesn't learn something well, and you become upset and you shout and you scream, and then you find that the child is not able to, the situation becomes even worse. That's because your emotional brain conks off. Yeah. So I think learning styles is one. If you just keep that in mind, that there are different learning styles and you have to bring it all in, that itself can make a phenomenal difference. True. Yeah, you were asking me about auditory styles. Yeah, I'm sure you'll remember, Sunana, when we do these workshops, what we do is we give a very boring paragraph, with a lot of dates and a lot of boring information. Kids are not, usually they're not excited to learn this. And we give this to them and we ask them to just create a song out of it. Yes. Don't you remember the experience? Spiders. Exactly, yeah. Usually what we do is we take a small paragraph about the spider family, which is something very boring. and we ask them to create a song, and we give them some time to do it. Now the kids don't know that they're learning, but when they actually create a song out of it, bring in rhyme and then sing it along, inadvertently, without them knowing, they learn it very quickly, and then they look at us with surprise, when did we learn this, you know? So that's how it works. How do you tune into your auditory learning style? Well, try to use music. Before that, try to read out aloud. Whatever you want to learn, read it loud, okay? And it's not just about reading it loud, you can try reading it in different tones. So you can whisper a few sentences, you can dramatize a few sentences, you know, you can use varying tones, maybe read it like how Donald Duck would read it. It might look funny, it might sound funny, but by doing that, you're actually tuning into your auditory senses and making it extremely easy for your brain to understand information and retain it. Go back to kindergarten, you know, where everything is taught using rhymes. The other way that you can use your auditory sense to your advantage is by discussing what you've learned with your friends. So if you find something tough and you have to learn it tonight, maybe you can call your sibling or call your mom and say, Mom, can I discuss this with you? And then read it out aloud and discuss what you've understood, and you'll probably hear your mother's interpretation of that. Or maybe you can teach a younger sibling, or even call a colleague or call a fellow student and explain the whole concept to him. So by doing that, by not keeping mum, but by using your vocal cords and by letting your ears hear the sound of what you have to learn, you learn much faster.
I think these people get into trouble in class as well, because they have to repeat what is being heard to get it registered. Like the teacher says 2 + 2 is 4, the child has to tell that to somebody to get it registered.
Exactly.
And they get into trouble.
Yeah, and God save that child if if the child is auditory and the teacher is strictly visual, you know, so the teacher might not allow the students to speak.
True.
So but for the poor guy, unless and until he talks about it, probably it is not going to sink in.
Yeah.
So that's how you use auditory styles to your advantage, Dr.
Yes. And what about a kinesthetic learner?
Well, I think I'll get excited when I talk about a kinesthetic learner.
Yes.
I'm a bit of auditory, and my predominant style is kinesthetic. Now, what happens for a kinesthetic learner is there's a beautiful concept in learning called whole body learning. Okay, a lot of people believe that you learn with your head, with your brain. But you've got your brain, and you've got your spinal cord, and you've got your nerves all around. So for you to learn, you have to use your whole body. So if you just sit and try to learn something, well, it'll register, it'll go in. But if you try to use your body along with it, then definitely your chances of learning quicker are more, and you tend to retain information more. So people who have a strong preference for that, they're called as kinesthetic learners, but also the others can also use it. Now, what happens in kinesthetic learning, Sunana, is that you should never sit idle while you learn. So given a chance, you should always get up and walk around. So you might see kinesthetic learners, they usually
walking
walk.
while learning.
Exactly.
Yes, yes.
When they read something, they use the finger to underline the sentences. They should continue doing that. Kinesthetic learners can also draw. So they can make a lot of marks on the books.
It would look like a war front.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. But visual learners, sometimes they like to keep it so neat and crisp and clean. Even after the whole year, the book looks new. For a kinesthetic learner, he would prefer doodling, making marks and underlining and writing in his own words what is interpreted, what is presented there. So these things can really help a kinesthetic learner learn. And some of the other techniques that we extensively use is every 5 to 10 minutes we ask him to get up. So what do? We put a chart on the wall and we say, okay, what are the key learning points that you've learned? Please go and write it on the chart. Or maybe even use post-it notes where he can actually summarize the key points on a post-it note and get up and go and put it on the board. Now this is something that goes out to teachers. Probably 30% of your students might be kinesthetic. So if you tell them, or an auditory as well, and so if you tell them keep quiet and sit silently, they'll not be able to learn. So there should be a lot of discussions in class. Students should be allowed to ask questions, and students should be allowed to get up and sit down and work in groups. And that's the only way you can use all your learning styles.
You mix up all the learning styles so that it's everyone benefits.
Exactly. So Nana, can I suggest something?
Yes.
I think before we go on, it's now time to take a small break. So if I can request the studio to give a short break, please don't go away. We will come back and continue this very interesting topic of accelerated learning techniques, which can make a phenomenal difference in the way your children and you learn and get ahead in life. So it's now time for a short break. See you at the other end.